I'm Tiffany Cloud. Welcome to The Storm, and thank you for watching today on WYLN 35. Centralia, a mine fire that started over 50 years ago, a fire that took a town of 1,000 to near abandonment. And now, in the Tresckow region, there's another fire causing residents a great deal of concern. Will history repeat itself? And how is it that bats, yes, those winged, blood-sucking rats, are making the situation even worse? Well, we'll find out when I talk to some leaders from Banks Township. And warning, this episode may not be suitable for vampires, witches, warlocks, or any fans of bats. But the environmentalists out there and the people of Tresckow, I hope you're watching. We'll be right back on WYLN 35. Welcome back to the show. I'm joined today by Joe Clark and Charles Shallis. They're both Banks Township supervisors. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Sure. We appreciate the opportunity to talk about our...
And I wish we were coming on for more pleasant reasons. This is not fun. This is serious stuff.
It is very serious.
So I know the first thing, in fact, we were talking about it right before we started rolling tape. The first thing that people think in this area when they think of a mine fire and a community, immediately heads go to Centralia. You know, a town that had to be abandoned in essence because of a mine fire, which is just so tragic. So obviously there must be a great deal of concern in Banks Township.
There is, and that's the first thing out of their mouths, Centralia. Even when we had our public meeting, is it going to be like Centralia? It's not as large as Centralia started out as. And one of the advantages that we have, they found the water table about 200 feet down. Centralia's was 700 feet.
Okay.
So if the fire should burn downward, it should hit the water. In fact, if you go over there at the mine site and walk, after 10 minutes your feet are hot. But the steam that's coming out of the ground is very, very moist. And I guess that's because of the proximity of the water. Okay.
I want to ask you how this started becoming known to the members of the community. What were the first signs?
Well, people were smelling like people like garbage burning, more or less, and they thought it was the neighbors, like burning, you know, fire pits at night and stuff like that. And then eventually it came out that it was a situation here at the mine situation, there's a mine fire involved.
And what's the smell like for those who aren't around it? Is it almost like a sulfur type of smell?
It's sulfur. It's rotten eggs, technically, like rotten eggs.
And it's just a strong smell at all times?
No.
Or?
No. Now tonight it will be because of the rain. As we were coming out, we looked over, and I guess the coolness in the rain produces more steam. And so tonight, despite the heat, we'll all be sleeping with our windows closed.
And the dampness holds it to the ground, so the smell does, the prevailing winds always blow away from the town, but the dampness holds it there. Then you'll smell it.
Oh, that sounds really pleasant.
Yes.
Good grief. In terms of the general size, estimated approximate size of this fire, what would it be the equivalent of?
Charles is the expert on that stuff.
DEP, they said 10 to 12 acres, according to the PA1 letter that they sent for the authorization to do the work. They're taking an area of 10 to 12 acres they're going to have encompass at this point to do the drilling.
Okay. And then in terms of, for those who may not be familiar with the Tresckow area and the areas impacted, about how many homes and how many people? Do you have a ballpark idea?
Not really. This started out in Hazel Township. Okay. And unfortunately, Jeff, we keep saying we would like to give it back to Hazel Township.
I bet you would. I'm sure Hazel Township has no interest in it,
no, they don't.
Yes.
Scott Katish, their fire chief, did a lot of preliminary work on this. 5% of it is in Luzerne County, Hazel Township, 95, Banks Township, Carbon County. So there are, the people from the old days remember it as Church Street in Jeansville. Now it's Hope Street. There are 5 homes that are Banks Township, and they're closest to the fire. But that whole area, I don't know exactly how many. There might be 12 to 14 houses on Hope Street that are in proximity of the fire.
Well, and to those people, I mean, this is obviously of critical importance because, and how ironic that the street that this is happening on is Hope, isn't it, though? Well, I hope it all gets resolved, for sure.
One of the residents came about a year ago to one of our township meetings and said, there's a mine fire under my house. And you got to give kudos to the Bureau of Abandoned Mines because I called, and you infringe on friendships a lot, and I called Mike Corbin. I said, he said, well, within an hour they had somebody down there. So they tested his property, and the temperature was only 29 degrees, so there's no mine fire under his house. But there were subsidence, which of course anywhere where the mines will be. On their way out of town, DEP stopped at the mine, and we got a letter saying, the mine operator, George Rosses, was doing what in the permitted area, was doing
everything he could.
Right, he's pouring 100,000 gallons of water down a day.
Okay.
He's still doing it.
Well, and that's what I want to sort of take a step backwards because we think this started around 2012.
That's when it started first emerging, but the residents there said there was and you know how Strippins are in this area, that there might have been a huge tire fire there 20 years ago.
Right, so there's no real definitive starting point.
That would have been the start.
What since around 2012, though, we'll just call that the approximate start, what since that time and up to recent days was happening? Because I know this issue has received tremendous momentum just in recent weeks, but what was going on leading up to this emergence of so much momentum? Was enough happening, or was the problem that nothing was happening?
Actually, nothing. No, we didn't know anything about this technically until, like when this gentleman called us regarding his subsidence and that, we had that investigated, and it turned out to be nothing. We had no idea this was going on. We had no idea.
So for years, this was a relative unknown, other than people thinking that there were people burning in their yards.
Right. Yeah, but there was no, even, and these people even at the end of Hope Street, I don't even know if they realized this was going on.
Right. So what have the steps you've been taking thus far to get greater attention in terms of who you've been meeting with and what's been promised or done to date?
My first phone call was to Bill Richards, who's Senator Ducek's guy in Carbon County. And I can't say enough about Senator Ducek and what he's done for us. He got right on it, working with Mike Corbin, the Bureau of Abandoned Mines. Mike Mangini out of Pottsville, he's the surface or underground mine, one of the other. There are 7 agencies actually working. You got
and that's always scary, though, when you have that many government agencies involved in anything, with all due respect to government agencies, though, but there's a lot of bureaucracy, so that's always scary
like the
stuff.
Fish and Boat Commission, you'd say, why would they be involved in, because of the bats?
Oh, and we're going to get to the bats. I want to hold off a little bit on the bats, because that's intriguing.
But then, after a public meeting, Mark Nalesnik, who is the Carbon County EMA director, came up to me because the people were concerned about the monitoring. At first, they were only doing it in daytime. Okay. And we say, in the near future, they're going to start doing it at night. Monitoring. 24 hours a day, the air quality. And that's what they're most concerned with. So Mark came up to me after the meeting and said, the federal government, the EPA, will monitor 24 hours. So my next stop was Congressman Barletta's office. All right. And last week, Mike Shea and Joe Gertis, who's the Harrisburg guy, we met at the mine site. Bill Richards was with us. They got a tour. And so everybody's on board.
So you've met at the congressional level.
Yes.
You've met at the state legislative level, at least with Senator Ducek.
And we're keeping everybody in the loop, Carbon County commissioners, although they have no jurisdiction, but everything we get, we give to them as well. So they know what's going on.
Since you have brought this really to a head, or a crisis moment, if you will, I mean, do you feel that you have all the attention that you need from legislative bodies and from government departments?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's encouraging.
I'll say we got excellent cooperation in a very short period of time from all the agencies.
Okay.
And that's not the government way of operating, but we definitely, everything fell in place like it was some kind of a miracle here.
Okay.
April 27th was the first site meeting. And now, whatever it is, June 11th.
They awarded that bid in record time for the drilling.
For the drilling.
3 days.
I mean, record time.
3 days to award a bid. Yes, that is virtually unheard of.
I worked for the state for 28 years, and they tell time with a calendar. Not a watch. Not a watch.
I know.
And it was miraculous. I mean, within days, this $1.2 million bid was awarded.
Well, that's exciting news. And with the positive news, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to take the audience through some important pictures. So we will be right back on The Storm. Welcome back to The Storm. So in this segment of the show, we're going to open by having Charles walk us through some visuals and explain what we're looking at to the audience. So if we could please pull up the first picture, which I believe is going to be an overview of the area. So Charles?
That's the overview of the Tresckow and Jeansville area. And the things indicated on there with the arrows are where they originally done some air monitoring to assure that the residents, the air quality was safe.
Okay. Now, one of the interesting things you were telling me when we were at break is that not only are you dealing with the fact that this fire is impacting 2 different counties, that you also have different rules that need to be followed. If you could kind of explain what that's all about.
Yeah, apparently under the mining industry you have what's called an active mine and you have inactive mine operations. Portion of this here on this diagram, the active mine is in the top arrow up towards
upper
the right. Upper right is the active
quadrant.
mine. But then the fire also burns into an inactive mine, and there's 2 separate sets of rules. The active mine is more or less the government works on them currently. Everything's up to date. The inactive mine, which was abandoned in what, 77, I believe, they're under a federal rules. So there's 2 different problems here in a way.
So you have 2 different counties, you have 2 different sets of rules, and the 2 different sets of rules, of course, mean 2 different areas that you go for funding?
Yes, it has to be funded from 2 separate sources because the inactive site they won't fund with the active sites.
Fascinating. Boy, you guys really drew the short stick when you ran for Banks County supervisor. So, okay, now let's pull up the next picture if we could, please. What are we looking
that
at?
would be picture number, that's at the end of Hope Street in Jeansville. It's the end of Hope, looking towards actually coming off Poplar Street in Hazelton, which would be Main Street in Jeansville. That was taken at that intersection, going down, looking towards the mine fire.
And these are some of the homes that would have this in closest proximity?
No, most of the, see that White House way down there on the right?
Yes.
Right there, Banks Township starts. The first couple of homes are in Hazel Township.
Okay, and the next picture, please.
The next one is at the end of the street. That's past all the homes. That's totally Banks Township. The fire would be right down past the tree line.
Okay, next.
That's the baseball field. That would be behind the baseball field in Banks Township, right along the Tresckow Hazelton Road.
Okay.
That was monitored behind 4951 Maple Street when they took the air testing.
Okay, next.
That was done at, let me see here, that would be number 4. That would be behind 73 East Maple Street.
So all of these are areas that have been air monitored that we're going through, just so the audience is clear.
They monitored along the house line on Maple Street behind the houses because the number of complaints.
That's in Tresckow now.
Okay, and I think there might be one or two
more.
more.
Should be one more, yeah. That's, let me see here, that would be by the baseball field also, at the corner of the baseball field.
Yes.
Okay. I would imagine.
There should be one more. Oh, no, sorry, that's actually going to Junedale Tresckow Road. That's down by Jerry McGuire's house at the end of Tresckow, the last house leaving Tresckow towards Junedale.
Okay.
That was there, because that's where the biggest smell is right now.
I see. And that last picture that was just up, that's just a summation of the areas that have been air monitored.
That was the air index of the 6 sites.
Okay.
And nothing was above any
Nothing's
danger.
above. There's no action levels at all that were reported.
Okay, I think we do have one more picture.
That's the actual mine site there. The pink part is the active mine site, and where the red dot is where the inactive mine site is. So
that's where, so the inactive
it's
has
a
one
little-
set of rules and the active has another set of rules.
Now the line going diagonally is the county line between Luzerne and Carbon, as you could see, but the fire's basically only a couple feet on the other side of the line. It's all on the lower side of the line, all Banks Township. And then the inactive site is forward there, where past that little clear spot that you see on there, it looks like blue. About an inch from that red dot is where the inactive site would be in that area there.
Well, again, from the good news standpoint, I am glad that you've got all the legislators engaged. I'm glad that you have all the government agencies engaged and surprisingly responsive. I like hearing that. Yeah. And I am certainly glad that the mine owner has been incredibly engaged as well. So, I mean, all of that is really positive. It doesn't sound like we have another Centralia. We have water tables that seem to be closer to the surface, which is also good. This, though, can't be a cheap endeavor. What kind of dollars are we looking at to do the surveying and to do the drilling and whatever is necessary?
The drilling came in at $1.2 million.
$2 million.
For 53
boreholes.
53 boreholes.
Okay.
And they can do 2 or 3 holes a day.
And that's just the drilling. That has nothing to do with when it gets to extinguishing. I mean, do we even have a sense of what this could cost yet?
I have no idea.
Okay.
So the drilling is going to tell them the expanse of the fire, and then they will sit down, they being Abandoned Mine Office, DEP, and they will determine the best way to attack this. You talk about Centralia, and there was a very difficult fire in Shenandoah in 1968, but of course we've progressed so much. So they will evaluate the expanse and then come up with a game plan.
Okay.
of how to fight it.
What they did, I believe, because of the past mine fires and Centralia issue, they learned.
Their lesson, yeah.
They learned their lesson now that this is an important situation. You need to get on it right away and do the best they could to end it before it gets out of hand.
Well, and I'm really happy to hear that, because sadly we do learn our history, and then so often we tend to repeat our history.
Yes, Santana, great quote, right?
We really do, and you know.
And like the rules for Centralia based on today are 1,000% different today, and the regulations are different and all. You know, those days, not too many people cared if you dug a hole in the ground.
Right. But still, I mean, best case scenario, do we think this entire process could take months? Could it take years? I mean, do we have any sense of what it could take once we get to the point where we've identified where we need to do, for lack of a better word, extinguishing?
I don't think so. I've heard by the end of the year. That's
Okay.
kind of, you know, I think we can do this by the end of, but it's not, they have to wait to see what's there.
Are the residents at any risk in terms of, when you talk about these fumes, in terms of toxicity in the fumes at all, if it's going to take between now to the end of the year, knowing that, you know, they're smelling this, they're inhaling it?
We don't think so.
No, they even when we had our public meeting, they said that the smell is far worse than, it's a smell only. It's like a little tiny bit, you get a real terrible smell.
Okay.
There's no air problem. They found nothing wrong with the air monitoring.
So the safety of people right now in terms of inhaling anything that's carcinogenic or toxin or is
And
okay?
like I said, in the very near future, they're going to start monitoring 24/7.
Okay.
And that's, again, part of the federal government's involvement, part of the state's involvement.
And that's what the residents at
That's
the
what they
meeting
want.
asked for. They said they'd like to, that they're only monitoring during work hours. And they said, well, what's the sense in that? You know, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm gagging in my bedroom. So they said now they're going to go 24-hour-a-day monitoring, because federal funds were needed for that. You couldn't do it with the state funds. So.
Have we had any people that have actually left the area because of this at this point? So
People are
everybody,
looking for buyouts.
yeah, oh, I bet they are, and you kind of can't blame them, I'm sure. But I mean, the good news is we have tough, hardy people in this community,
Yes.
and we have fighters, and we have resilient people, and it's the kind of character that we have that carries through tough times.
Absolutely.
What's benefiting these people is like the information, we're very transparent with the information. Nothing's being kept back.
No.
And everything's been answered up front, as honest as can be, by you name whoever you want to ask. They gave the best answer they could. And people like that more than getting in circles here.
Wonderful. We're going to talk about two things at the next break. We're going to talk about, after the next break, we're going to talk about bats and what they have to do with this. And Joe's going to give some hot off-the-press updates. So we will be right back on The Storm. Welcome back to The Storm. Gentlemen, I'm dying to have you tell us about the bats. So it's my understanding that in the inactive section of the mine, there is a large bat colony which has been federally protected. Give us an update about these bats.
Well, first of all, for all the listeners and viewers, I'm still a radio person. but,
That's okay.
We've got permission to go in and work where the bats are now.
Good.
We got that permission.
So the federal protection
Yep.
has been lifted, because that was going to be a huge
Yeah.
topic of discussion. So that is hot off the press.
U.S. Office of Surface Mining and Reclamation and Enforcement, how about that, is the agency that gave them permission, gave DEP, Department for Pennsylvania, permission to go on that land.
Because if we didn't have that permission, that would have been a serious problem with
Absolutely.
getting rid of this
Absolutely.
fire.
And it would have prolonged the ending of it, because you couldn't go there.
Well, it's nice to finally see common sense take precedence, where winged rats aren't put over people.
Right.
So
And they are in their birthing season right now, which means they can't fly.
oh,
How about that?
that's
See,
interesting.
Everything you want to know about bats.
Oh, everything I want to know about bats.
So what DEP did, or abandoned mines did, when they start drilling, they drilled on the north side where they know there's no fire. But their thought was, they want to see if it's expanded, but their thought was the noise and commotion might disturb the bats and have them fly away on their own.
Okay.
So that's why they started on the north to drill. So very shortly, they're going to come into that abandoned mine territory. Yeah.
Okay, and pretty soon, hopefully, they'll be able to flap their little wings and get on out of there. And this is, you were telling me, this is at the break, this is the second biggest bat colony in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So once they get out of there, we're going to have a bucket load of bats flying around, right?
Well, there's supposed to be a shortage
poor
of bats.
people of Banks Township. I mean, they've got sulfur, then they'll have bats, but I'm sure they'll be happy knowing the bats will go.
We'll have no more insects.
That's true, no insects. You got bats
no
to look
insects
forward
once
to.
they fly.
Let's get to your updates because you have a bunch of important updates.
Yes. Again, since the work will be done, all the drilling will take place outside the protection area at the moment, again, so that the bats might get stronger, might pass this birthing season so they can fly, and so that the newborns would be able to get out of the area as well. So as long as they got to do the whole thing that they started in the north to try to do this. And the Bureau of Abandoned Mines, along with the Pennsylvania Game Commission, they have a protocol so that if any bats are found, they'll be identified, and so that the Game Commission can know that what bats are here and take further steps to protect them or whatever the case may be. The drilling is proceeding very well. The aerial thermimaging has been done. It indicates the fire is mainly in the area shown on the maps that Charles pointed out. And they plan to do additional drilling just to make sure that the fire hasn't gone beyond where they expect it to be. And again, the monitoring of the homes for air quality will begin very shortly, 24/7.
Magnificent.
That had to be paid from the federal money. The state wouldn't allow the 24-hour monitoring. The federal, that's Congressman Barletta office.
So they're ones that worked on that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Gentlemen, this has been a fascinating education. We have about a minute left, and you taught me a term at break, so I want to give you a chance to explain what it is. The term is carbonaceous. What does it mean?
It means that what is burning is not coal. It's coal-like materials. It has carbon in it, like shale. People, that pick coal in the old days, they got shale, they got some ash. Slate. See, the fire is not hot enough at the moment to ignite the coal.
Okay, which is good, right? Because then it would spread like...
But it ignites this carbonaceous material.
Okay.
That's what's burning.
So that's what's burning. Well, thank you. We all learned a new vocabulary word, although there's probably a couple people in a coal mining area that know that term, but I did not. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. To the legislators out there, thank you for being reactive, proactive, the government agencies. And congratulations also to the community. I always say at the end of my shows, don't complain about it, do something about it. But in this case, I'm glad the people of Banks Township complained about the smells.
Absolutely.
Because that led to people doing something about it. Everyone, thank you so much for watching.